What have you learned from your audience feedback? In this question, one of the essential parts of talking about it is looking at audience theory to help explain why the audience might be reacting in some ways, and why they may have responded to my film and my ancillary products the way that they did. One of the first audience theories is the effects model. The effects model states the consumption of media text has an effect or influence upon the audience. This is quite similar to the hypodermic effect, which is another audience theory. This assumes that the audience are passive and powerless to the influence of films and media-related things, and that the power lies within the message of the text. So if they were looking at my film article, the way I've written it, the way I've produced it to make it look appealing to the audience may have an influence on how they read it and how they might react to it. For example, if you look at my film, I've got some violence in it, I've got themes of kidnapping, and obviously kidnapping, and they can seem quite distressing. You've got loss in there, and that is ultimately going to influence the audience. Making them feel sadness, pathos for the character, and also probably tension when I have the quick cuts of the Arkans and psycho people, and obviously that is going to influence them. Whether they are passive to it, I would disagree. I don't think they're powerless to it, but the effects model would state that they are powerless to it. The second one, as described a little bit earlier, is the hypodermic model. Here, the messages and media texts are injected into the audience by the powerful syringe-like media. Again, it says that that the audience is powerless to resist, and the media works like a drug, drugging them, addicting them. It's got some irony to it, since my film is about drugging people and making them deranged. This is followed up by a description of the Bobo doll experiment. I learned about this when I did psychology last year for my AS levels, and the results of it found that after getting some small children involved in putting them in a situation in, say, a room where they would have a Bobo doll, I think it was in the first experiment it was 3 foot, and in the second it was 5 foot, remembering. It was conducted by a psychologist called Bandura, and he wanted to see the children's reaction to violence, having watched, say, a violent film or just being locked into the room, and see whether they would inflict violence on a Bobo doll, which results were found positive. And linking this to audience theory, it's kind of showing about how possibly children will imitate media that they watch. So if they see someone in a film displaying some aggressive or violent behaviour, that they will imitate this, and this is a negative impact on the audience. Using these theories, a lot of them have been used by media experts, not the filmmakers themselves, but say politicians and religious organisations that contribute the violence to the consumption of media texts and films. So, such as if we look at, for example, the film Clockwork Orange, which was released in 1971, was linked to a number of cases of violent attacks and rapes. There was the case of of two kids, one 9 and 10 years old, and basically their behaviour was linked to possibly watching a film about a little doll called Chucky. I think that was Child's Play 3, and that was linked to the murder of Jamie Bulger in 1993 when they killed him. Out of all the cases, though, that have demonstrated that perhaps media has influenced people, it hasn't been proven that there is no solid evidence that that they have been influenced by the media that they've been consuming. Where before I've been talking about the media effects model, another version of it is the uses and gratification model, where instead of saying that the audience is passive, it's talking about the audience as being active, and that they're actively consuming the media that we're putting out there. So they're using it and not used by it. They're not influenced by it in such a strong and negative way. And they're just using it for their own gratification and pleasure, as said by the title. what they're saying is the power lies in the audience, not with the producers. It's not about what the producers distribute, but it's about what the audience do with the media texts and how they use them. So, for example, it's the priority of the parents to, respect what content is there in a film and decide whether it's appropriate or not for their child. So that we're basically free to reject some of the media's, or want to feel influenced by it. One theorist, who is an academic named Stuart Hall, considered the idea about how texts were encoded with meaning by producers, and then decoded by the audiences. And the theory suggests that when a producer constructs a text, it is encoded with a meaning or message that is some way going to convey deep thoughts and ideas to the audience. And so in many instances, the audience will correctly decode the message and understand what the producer is trying to say. In other instances, they might reject it or just completely misunderstand the message. Stuart Hall identified 3 important readings or decodings of a text or media form. That is the dominant or preferred, negotiated, and oppositional. The dominant is all about how an audience might decode a text or message, and as the producer will want them to do so, and they will broadly agree with it, so such as a political speech. Negotiation, where the audience will accept it and they reject fine elements or agree with other fine elements, so kind of neither agree nor disagreeing, and you can get that with political speeches as well. Another thing is oppositional, where the dominant meaning is recognised but rejected by the audience member, purely down to either, let's say, political ideas or ideologies. So, even still, they might reject a political argument or speech down to some of the ideologies that they might have.